Welcome to another episode of the Growth Focus podcast, where we bring together tech leaders from all across the globe to share their insights and their expertise and to help us grow our businesses in this wonderful industry. My name is Gary Lafferty, your host, creator and founder of the Authority Accelerators, where we drive revenue and profits by transforming experts in the tech industry into authorities in their own right, so they can become the chosen one by their clients as opposed to be the ones doing the chasing. On this episode, I am absolutely honored and pleased to have Pankaj here, who's going to be talking all things tech, all things growth and teams. And we have so much to fit in to this particular episode. So make sure you keep your ears peeled and take as many notes as you can, because it's going to be an absolute banger on this one. So without further ado, Pankaj, welcome. It's great to have you here. Why don't we start off by giving us a little thing about who you are, a little bit about your history, and what is it you're doing today?
Gary, wonderful to be here. Delighted that you invited me. Thank you very much. So just a little bit about myself. When I talk to people, who I've worked with in the past, my friends, they all call me a builder of companies, and I cannot disagree more. I don't think I'm a builder of companies, but rather a builder of amazing teams that is a precursor to amazing companies. So I'm really, really good at finding talent and empowering that talent to do their own magic. So that's kind of like my history as well. I moved to the Bay Area about 25 or so years ago. I've helped build 4 companies, failed one company, and turned around 2 companies. So there's a litany of lessons through the course of my building of great teams and hence amazing companies that have given me the ability to recognize opportunity, the path to actualize those opportunities, and to leave people feeling awesome because they did something that was meaningful to them and to the rest of the world. So that's my history. Built the 4 companies, as I said before, which has been very rewarding, anywhere from 0 to 100 million in revenue, 100 million to $1 billion in revenue, and several exits under my belt. Uh,
Wow.
I'm super excited about what I'm doing now. For the last year and a half now, it's something different from what I've done in the past. It's not pure tech. It's a what I would describe as a systems thesis. So it's not a here's a problem, here's a solution. I have built the best team to solve that problem, right? It's much more than that. It's a systems thesis where we are saying there's a whole new ecosystem that ought to be developed to give rise to what we call NBS, nature-based solutions, to take hold to the benefit of the climate in the future, right? So the thesis of the company that I'm at, Renaissance, is about how do we replace toxic ingredients with natural substances across hundreds of products. And for that to happen, you have to develop a brand new ecosystem from the ground up. And I'm super excited about what we can achieve if we were to just achieve 10% of our vision. So excited about that.
Yeah, and I can absolutely see why. It's a fantastic mission. When you and I have talked before about it, there are so many applications to this, and it's going to be really exciting times for you. But that's going into the future. What I really want to do right now is kind of dial it right back to the very beginning of your career, because there's going to be some people here who are going to be listening to it and listening to you and listening to this episode and thinking, I just don't know what it is, but I just can't let go yet, or I can't make that move. Now, we've all taken leaps of faith, but your leap of faith was rather unique. You moved to the Bay Area with only a few weeks left on your visa here after college and without a job. But you just had this leap of faith that you went, do you know what? And I love the story behind it as well. But and why you actually did it. But please share that story if you wish, or not, or we can just go straight into what kind of mindset did you have there and then, and how has that helped you in your career to date?
Excellent question, and I appreciate you remembering this story when we last spoke, Gary. So, I met a girl and I chased after her. That's the story of moving to the Bay Area, right? I met her in Virginia. Within a week, I knew she was the one for me, and I quit my job a few weeks after that. moved to the Bay Area, and as you rightly pointed out, I had 5 weeks remaining on my visa. So I had to find a job very, very quick so I could stay back in the country and actualize my own dreams, right? Now, I believe that, smart people are the most lazy people. They're the more fearful people. They overthink every decision, right? So I'm glad to admit that I'm not that smart, right? So that was, I didn't overthink. I knew what I wanted, what I desired, what would make me happy, and I just did it. So I
Mm,
never overthought that decision. I didn't care about the consequences, right? We often talk about the fear of failure. I guess it's kind of similar to that. But I think overthinking is one of the worst things the smartest people in the world do,
mm,
right? So
mm,
my mindset was coming in here, chasing after what I really desired that would make me happy. I went after happiness and everything turned out okay. Because when you're
mm,
joyous in your mind and your spirit, no problem is insurmountable. So the mindset is, if you embrace your desires and look for happiness, very naturally you tend to see challenges as another step on the journey. And you just go take that step and the next and the
mm.
following step, right? And that's the mindset, I think, right? So do not overthink, go after happiness, and when you are joyful, every challenge seems like another step in the journey.
Yeah, and I think that's some great advice there. And but chasing happiness to a degree is some people will say around, well, in an ideal world, chasing happiness, we'd all like to do that, but we got things to do.
Right.
But we can relate it in a different way. It's like waiting for all the lights to be green. If you're waiting for the whole journey to be green, you never really get started. You just got to take that first leap of faith, have a open mindset. Like you said, parachutes only literally work once you start using them. There's no good just sat on your back, right? You've got to
Right.
go, you've got to jump out the plane and use it,
Right.
and whatever makes you happy. But there's another word that when you and I chat, was a good foundation to your career that got you to where you, and you said the transformation you've done to these fantastic companies, and that is curiosity over experience. You learned the value of curiosity over experience very, very early on, because there are people listening here, I don't yet have the experience, or my experience isn't good enough yet to take it to the next level. How have these principles guided you, having that curiosity led first over experience in building successful businesses?
No, that's it's one of the most remarkable lessons that I got when I first moved to the Silicon Valley, by my first boss here. And I knew nothing about the business. I knew nothing about what I was supposed to do in my own job. And the internet thing was very, very new at that point of time. So I walked into his office and said, Ken, why did you hire me? And he burst out laughing and he said, curiosity. Nobody knows how this is to be done. And if you're not curious, you will never get it done. And that was very, very revealing to me. It gave me two separate lessons, in a nuanced fashion. One was, you have to keep learning, right? Curiosity is about learning. And the second thing it gave me was empowerment. It is okay not to know, right? Oftentimes, we get stuck and we get fearful of the fact that I don't know something, and it stops us. We get stuck. But the moment you start thinking, oh, there's more to learn, it just changes the frame of reference you have. So one is, I don't know, and we get stuck. The other is, I need to learn this. It's an expression of learning. Just so that was very, very crucial for me. And that has helped me build three companies that were world's first. Things that had
Mm,
never been done before could now be done because I asked the question, what is it that I need to learn? Right. So I'll give you a quick example. At the billion-dollar company that I helped build, one of the first SaaS businesses in technology back in 2001, when nobody knew SaaS was a thing. And I kind of sat around and looked at my team. They were all like me, right? In terms of educational backgrounds, personal as well as professional experiences. How in the world would we be curious about something new if we had similar experiences? So I took it upon myself to rebuild the team. I hired a musician, I hired an ex football player, and I hired a journalist on the team. I said, you have one job. To all those three people, ask us questions, right? So the lesson that I got around curiosity was not about, I don't know, I'm fearful of that scenario, versus I changed that to what is it that I still need to learn? And that gets you on a very, very interesting journey. You're not worried about not knowing, you're worried about, I'm learning more, I'm learning more, I'm learning more. You get excited about that, right? And based on the questions these three people asked us, we ran 800 experiments in 7 months to take an $80 million business and turn that into a $1 billion revenue business in 5 years, right?
Mm,
That's the
mm.
power of curiosity. That's the power of shifting your mindset from, I don't know, what do I do, to, I need to learn more, right? So it's
Yeah.
been phenomenal for me. It's, as you said, a foundational lesson for my career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that especially in tech, there's this tendency to feel that you just need to know, like you said. And if you don't need to know, there's a tendency that you must know all the answers in tech.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're not succeeding. You've got to be the guy or the girl that knows everything. And quite frankly, you can't know everything. It's just humanly impossible to know absolutely everything. And so therefore, by searching outside of the normal, like you said, outside of the people just like you, and getting those three kind of, I don't know, complete outsiders to come in really helped you turn that around. So that leads me quite nicely, actually, into teams. So, as you say, people have often called you a fantastic builder of businesses. You've just turned companies into multi millions, $1 billion companies and whatnot. But you always turn around and say, no, I am the builder of the world's best teams. And building a team is really, really important when in any business, right? It really becomes a very, very important part. What approach have you been taking that helps you identify, but not just identify, but also nurture top talent? Whether it be for attitude or aptitude, what helps you identify them and then nurture them in order to keep them so that they can actually help you grow the company?
Fantastic question. So, before we can talk about that specifically, we have to understand the philosophy behind it, right? At least, from my experience, right? So, I mentor a lot of founders and companies across the world. And the first lesson I give to founders who care to listen is exercise, physical exercise. We get so busy in our work that we forget that there's work to be done on our bodies, right? And that's my first lesson of team building. When I hire people, I spend a lot of time talking about what do they do to work their bodies,
Mm-hmm.
because a healthy body leads to clarity of thinking. And that's the most important thing. Any entrepreneur, any founder, any top talent needs to possess clear thinking, right? So that's my first lesson. Now, the philosophy is, you don't build, as I said, great companies. You first focus on amazing teams. So to answer your question, the way I think about building teams for innovation purposes, right? When you're trailblazing, you're breaking through, you're creating a world's first 0 to 1 type of things, right? You have to truly believe in the fact that I have three math equations that I use in my philosophy. The first one is, team is greater than individual talent. So when I assess talent, I don't assess talent. I assess the talent's ability to work with other talent. That's number one for me. You could be
Mm-hmm.
brilliant, but you cannot work with anybody. We are not going anywhere. Second math equation is, hunger plus grit is greater than skill plus experience. Skill is acquired, experience is time. Hunger and grit are innate. So when I'm looking at talent, I'm looking at how hungry are they? which is going back to the curiosity lesson, hungry to learn,
mm,
and grit, would they get stuck with the first, second challenge? Or would they have the grit to overcome those because they're hungry, right? So
mm,
grit plus hunger is greater than skill plus experience, both of which are acquired tastes, so to speak, right? And my third equation is dynamic culture is greater than rigid culture, except for the military, I would assume, right?
mm,
And what I mean by dynamic culture in relation to teams is when I assess talent, I look at would that talent, typically, we are coached, and I was coached like this as well, that when you're hiring, make sure there is a culture fit with the person, right? Over time, I'm like, that's bull. That doesn't make sense to me, right? Because every time you want to hire somebody, you want them to bring them to the team. You want them to provide a fresh perspective to who you are. I want to add to the richness of the culture rather than force fit to a culture, right? So my third math equation that I utilize in team building is dynamic culture is greater than rigid culture. So you come in and add to my culture, not fit to it,
mm,
right? So those are three team building things. Now, the other thing is once you have the team, what do you do, right? How do you empower that team is the next step as a leader, as a founder of companies. And I kind of, again, I have a kind of three rules for empowerment. And these are like, an answer and two questions, right? So
mm,
anytime somebody comes to me on the team and says, you know what, I'm working on this, I'm stuck here. What do you think, Pankaj? What should I do? Helping me, find a solution for a problem. And my first response is, I don't know. That is always my first response. I don't know. What do you think? That does two things, Gary. Number one, it tells the member on the team that it is okay not to know.
mm,
When the leader of your team says, I don't know, he or she makes it okay for you not to know. It relaxes people. Now they're open to new things versus being fearful of a conversation with the leader, right? And
mm,
the second thing it
mm,
does is when you ask the question, what do you think? Oh, my leader is asking my opinion.
mm,
Right away, there is empowerment. It is okay for me not to know, and it is important to air my own opinions because my leader is willing to listen to them. So that's the first
mm,
one. The second principle that I use is when they describe their opinion or an idea or a solution to a particular problem, I say, yes. I never say no. It could be a horrendous idea, but I always say yes. Tell me more.
mm,
What that does is two things again. Number one, say, oh, I can come up with good ideas. That's what the person is thinking. So they feel even more empowered. I have good ideas.
mm,
The tell me more gets into the conversation where they start debating the idea. Now that's out there and the leader has accepted it, they debate it with themselves and help it become better.
mm,
You can always say no, right? When you say no right off the bat, it stops conversation.
mm,
When you say yes, you get yourself the opportunity to learn more about somebody's opinion, right? And it empowers the team members. And the last one is once they kind of describe their idea and debate it with themselves, the question is, what will we do next? So now the person has to think about, okay, I have an idea, but is it insular in nature? Or does it allow me to lay the next brick of a building? And that's where the decision of yes or no arrives, right? Say, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, no, this is just a great idea, but it won't allow us to build the next thing to build a great company.
mm,
Maybe we
mm,
shouldn't do that right now, right? So you arrive at the no together, but that process allows extreme empowerment of the person.
mm,
And it prevents that person from, the fact that, you're willing to listen to their ideas, gives them the opportunity to keep coming back with new ideas to you. So now
Yeah.
you've
That.
created curiosity at scale, right?
Yeah.
So that is the way, right? So just to recap, when you're building team, think team is greater than the individual talent.
Mm.
You're weighing hunger and grit over experience and skills. You are wanting to improve and evolve your culture, not fit people to a culture. Empowerment is about helping people refine their ideas, accepting their ideas in the first place, and then asking the question, what can we do after that happens?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's been my modus operandi last 10, 12 years.
Yeah, and Pankaj, that's just they're simple shifts, but so powerful. That
Right.
you think about it, and go, oh yeah, that makes complete sense. What I mean? And the fact is, if you think about it like I couldn't help but thinking when you were talking, you think of like a recipe. If you just want to add more ingredients of what you already know, then it stays exactly the same. It's when you start bringing in different spices, different herbs, and that to enhance it. And that's when you grow. If you had a
Right.
football team and still had the same old players you always had and look for the same, then you have the same results. You need that extra input of stuff, but allowing people to, like you said, your third point, allowing people to be open with their ideas, encouraging them. That goes back to the curiosity, which we started off with. Always be
Absolutely.
curious.
Right.
Always be curious. Let's hear some doors open. Let's step through together. We can always save the no until later on. So I think the guys who are listening, if you if you're going to take one thing from this podcast, take those three. Take that little part about team building because it's so vital, so good. So let's take a little shift now from the teams and growing the teams from that to growth, rapid action, velocity versus speed. Now, when you and I were talking, we always talk about the velocity side, but in the industry, it's all about speed. The key word, the key metric always uses speed, especially in the VC world. The VC wants you to run fast, change fast, stop fast. And everything is speed orientated. But the power really doesn't come from the speed. When people say fail and fail fast, it's not about the speed. It's about the velocity. How can founders use this concept of velocity versus speed to help their businesses become more effective?
Right. So I think there are a couple of things I would say to get started. One is, I think this fail fast lesson is often misunderstood. And this comes from, really remarkable people who built enduring companies. So when they say fail fast, they don't mean fast. What I take that message to mean is velocity. Fail fast in a particular direction, right? You always need to know where you're headed. And that's part of team alignment as well, right? Oftentimes, I've seen entrepreneurs come in and they have a great idea and they have a vision, but the moment something changes in the market, they completely supplant their idea with something else, right? Now you created another direction. And this will happen so often that after 6 months, you have no idea what the original vision was, right? So failing fast towards a vision that you are convinced is the right vision is the way to go towards velocity, right? So don't change every time something changes in the market. Be convinced about your vision and keep moving, right? Now, you may realize after 6 months that's the wrong vision. Then you change. But be convinced about the direction, number one, right? So here are the couple things I use. One is the rule on velocity that I have is 60% consensus, 100% commitment, right? If 6 out of the 10 team members agree on doing something, you commit all 10 to make that happen. That's the
Mm.
100% commitment, right? And it has happened to me where I have disagreed with the team, but I've given my 100% to make it happen because there was 60% consensus. That's the idea of speed and velocity kind of together, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
continuously wait for somebody to create 100% consensus, you will lack speed. So it won't work, right? So 60% consensus, 100% commitment. The second is And this comes from a book I read 20 years ago. It's called The Himalayan Odyssey. It is not a business book, written by a guy, Parker Antin, who trekked the Himalayan mountain range, right? And there's this beautiful, it's a romantic story actually. And that he kind of has a sentence which says, great insights come from doing, not thinking. And that's been etched in my memory for 20 years now, right? What that really means is uh, evidence is what eliminates confusion, not
Mm.
thinking. You can analyze, and still be in the same place. But once you make a decision and you act on it, very quickly evidence will come in and tell you, wrong decision, Pankaj, do something different, right? So action leads to more insights than thinking will ever lead to, right? And
Mm.
that's the idea of velocity as well, because you have a direction set, you make a decision. Making decisions is probably the most important thing for founders to do. And oftentimes we worry about whether it's the right or the wrong decision. Don't worry, just make decisions. Do not worry whether they're right or wrong, because when you make a wrong decision, you act on it very quickly, you learn an insight, you move the ball forward, regardless of whether it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. And you move the ball
Mm.
forward way faster. And the
Yeah,
third,
and it's a lesson. And it's just a lesson. You're just learning from it, whether it's the right way or the wrong way, the right direction or the wrong direction. You can always bring it back or change direction and get the ball where you need to get to. But you've got to take the action.
you got to take the action, right? And this is the overthinking complex as well,
Mm.
right? That I was talking to at the onset of this discussion. You overthink, you overanalyze, you get stuck. You're not moving forward, right? Whereas any decision is a good decision, in my opinion.
Mm.
Any decision is a good decision because it allows for action to happen, which quickly creates the evidence, which eliminates the confusion. The confusion was wrong direction, right direction, quickly eliminated, right? And the last one
Mm.
is counterintuitive. Okay, so the first is 60% consensus, 100% commitment, right? Six agree, all 10 agree to do it. Second is action is greater than thinking.
Mm.
Just act, make a decision. Don't worry, wrong, right, doesn't matter. And the third one is be lazy. That's counterintuitive to fast and speed and velocity,
Mm.
right? And by be lazy, I mean that one question that I ask my team members when they come up with an idea: what comes next? Every single time you want to do something, ask the question: will it help me build the building? Will it help me lay the next brick?
Mm.
Because we have 100 amazing ideas all week long, but only one or two of them will allow you to lay the next brick. So be
Mm.
lazy. Don't work on every spectacular idea you have. Just ask one question. Doesn't take long. One question. If I do this, what will I do next?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's the idea of velocity. Being
Yeah.
lazy increases velocity. So those are the three rules I've used. I use them every single day.
Yeah, yeah, they're these, and they're fantastic rules, just to adhere to. And like everything else, it's the stuff that people actually know in the back of their head because none of this is new. They're just not taking action on it.
Correct.
They're either second guessing it, or they're trying everything to be perfect first, or whatever, or they're misunderstanding what it actually means. Like you said about the misunderstanding of fail and fail fast. But I love the thing about direction, which is now where I want to move this to. All right. We talk about velocity, but pick a direction first. What is direction? You and I have often spoken about founders chasing trends rather than focusing on differentiating their value.
Correct.
All right. And this is why everyone sounds the same. This is why when I'm speaking to my clients, when I'm speaking and interviewing people, one of their biggest challenges is I sound exactly like everybody else.
Yep. Yep.
Right. So, how can businesses identify their uniqueness and their unique value proposition and avoid the trap of being trend driven and become differentiation different?
That's probably the number one reason companies fail, because they fail to discover their true differentiation, right?
Mm.
So there's one thing that I do almost all the time, and that's understanding the true customer pain point. Your differentiation is basically the unique value you provide. There is unique value only when you understand the true pain point. I take a very simple example of my own experience to kind of explain this to founders, young founders. 25 years ago, when I moved to the Valley, I got a phone survey, right? Back then, there were people used to call to ask you questions. So the guy was, doing some research and he asked me the question. He said, what is your dream car, Pankaj? I said, it's Porsche. And we talked about Porsche for like the next 10 minutes. And he hung up. And I went to my boss, Ken. I said, I just did this. He started laughing. He said, did you notice the flaw in that survey? I said, what? Tell me. And this is what he told me, which I still remember. He said, they never asked you what car you drive right now. I used to drive a Honda Accord. My dream aspiration was a Porsche. So now I could expect campaigns from Porsche coming to me to buy a Porsche with zero ability for me to get there, right? So this is a great way to kind of think about what do you think the customer wants versus truly understanding what action they can take. That's
Mm.
the gap you need to close. And that comes
Mm.
by asking a few questions. For example, the question I ask customers or potential customers is not what are they using to do XYZ, which is a task oriented, benefit oriented question, right? I ask
Mhm.
the question, if you were in your if you were given a tool to do XYZ, how would that tool really help you? Right? So there is a hypothesis that I help founders form, and it's a very simple hypothesis. If I were to build X, would it help these types of people derive value Y? So there
Mm.
are three components to that hypothesis. One is, what is it that you do in terms of building something? What is the value being derived and by whom? Oftentimes you'll realize you don't discover the differentiated value proposition because one of those three elements is off. It's either you're
Mm.
talking to the wrong customer group or target, or you have the wrong value, or you build the wrong thing,
Mm.
right? So to arrive at a differentiated value, there are three things you have to do. One, you have to not focus on tasks that you will help customers do better. You have to focus on why they do want to do those tasks in the first place,
Mm.
right? Aspiration, right? The second one is form this hypothesis and say, am I talking to the right customer group, or am I providing the right value, or have I built the wrong thing? Test one of those components at a time, not all three at once, right? And the last thing to do is, if I solve this problem, who else solves this problem? And that's where the differentiation lies,
Mm.
right? So a quick example of that would be, marketing agencies, right? They all sound, look, do the same kind of work. There's one agency that I love. It's not here, it's in Asia. They have a very different proposition. They say, I do none of these things. I just help you tell your customers they're the most awesome brand you can have. And this is nothing unique. But when they say this to their own customer, the customer starts a conversation with them. And the question they ask is, what makes me awesome? And that
Mm.
is the value of an agency. It's not running social media, it's not running Facebook ads, it's not, creating content. It's understanding what makes somebody awesome.
Mm.
That changes the whole conversation. So they don't focus on what they will do for them. They give them a dream that allows
Mm.
for a conversation to happen. And that's the uniqueness this agency brings to those clients.
Yeah, so far more than deliverables.
Far more
They're
than
selling the dream. They're selling them the idea. They're selling them their future self. Yeah, their
right,
future pacing and going in. And yeah,
right.
very much like, as I said, this is what we do with our authority builders. We actually say, how do you stand out? Like you just said, you got to
Yeah,
have differentiation. And then, we build the authority in you, but it's not the deliverables to become authority, because that is a process in itself. It's how do we make you stand out? How do we make you the star, right, of your industry? So
yeah.
it's a very vital part.
And then just one last comment on this. Like, a bunch of years ago, I worked on a golf startup. I used to build custom golf clubs for people, for average golfers, right?
Mm.
And the golfer community is a very passionate community when it comes to golf. They get frustrated with the game, but they want to continuously improve their game, right? And custom clubs is one mechanism that allows you to continuously improve your game. And I did some research with that, target group. And what I discovered was this one insight that they want to continuously improve their game,
Mm.
right? Other custom golf club manufacturers talked about the benefits of a golf club and how you can enhance those set of benefits because it's customized to your game. We completely changed that.
Mm.
We said, we help you become the best golfer you can ever be. Completely changed. Like, we never talked about custom clubs. We never talked about the grip, the long game, the short game. We said, I will help you become the best golfer, Gary, you can be.
Mm. Mm.
By running that campaign in a week, we moved our customer count from 9,792, I still remember 9792, to 99,000 in
In one
six
week,
months. In 6 months,
6 months. Yeah.
right? Because we just said, become the best golfer you can be,
Mm.
right? So we have to truly understand what is the not the surface level need set, but the true pain point. Tie that to an aspirational goal that customer has.
Mm. Mm.
That's what you talk about. That's your differentiation.
Yeah, absolutely. And fantastic. Fantastic examples you've given there as well. But I've got one last question for you before we kind of wrap this up, because I think that's people do suffer from out there from differentiating themselves. They just say, but I think I know what my ICP pain point is, and etc.
Right.
But they haven't done, like you said, you did extensive research, absolutely extensive research, to make sure that you absolutely understood what their pain is and what their aspirations was, like you
Right.
just said from there. So for those people who are listening who think they've done enough research, the advice would be go and do some more research. Go out there and absolutely find out what their pain point and their aspirations are. From that, that's how you get to find what your ICP pain point is. Now, with your extensive experience in advising massive companies like LifeLock and Carbonite and whatnot, how do you think being a recognized authority helps founders drive profits and revenues into their companies?
Yeah, immensely. I think that's immeasurable on many levels. The key though is authenticity. You can't just say things. You have to have substance behind it, right? A promise without substance is the fastest way to doom, right? What you really need to do is be yourself as that leader, right? I have a few friends who are remarkable thought leaders in their own domains. And the one thing that always distills from those conversations I have with them is they are exactly who they are in front of the camera as they are in person in a coffee shop with you, right?
Mm.
So it is very easy to decipher and understand who is being authentic and who is just making stuff up as they go along, right? So becoming a thought leader, everybody wants to be one. My suggestion to people would be to look deep inside and say, what is that one true thing you actually believe in? Have a core. Know you who you are first before you tell
Mm.
the world about stuff. So you got to know who you are. believe in something, hold that belief dear, and don't compromise on it for a variety of other reasons that come your way. So,
Mm,
thought leadership is about authenticity to me. And once you have that, there's remarkable growth that comes from that, right?
mm,
So I'll give you one quick example, right? I wouldn't name the person because I didn't ask for his permission. He built a brand new category. He's one of the most respected, CEOs in the Valley. A dear friend of mine for 25 years or now. He was an introvert and he was creating a category. Somebody told him, dude, it's not going to work. You have to be out there pounding the pavement, right? For 6 months, he closeted himself with a coach and learned how to communicate and truly hone in on, did he actually believe in that category?
mm,
So he told me later, years later, Pankaj, the one thing I really had to do was to truly believe that what I'm doing will change lives. Once I had that belief, nobody could stop me because
mm,
because I knew what I was talking about is one, but I believed in it, and that belief travels in your body language to other people, right? So my number one advice is, obviously you need to understand your domain, but do you believe in it?
mm,
If you don't believe in what you're doing, it's going to be very apparent to people very quickly, right? So that's one example, and a good friend of mine actually did it in a it's $1 trillion industry that he created from scratch back in
mm, mm.
2008. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a fantastic piece to end on. I can't believe where the time has gone, Pankaj. It's been an absolute just sitting here listening to you and sharing that insights and advice. Thank you very much for that. Listen, if you wanted the listeners here to take away just one thing, we've talked about many, many things today, but given the time that we have today, if you wanted them to take just one thing, one biggest takeaway, what would it be?
The biggest takeaway would be, make decisions without worrying about whether they're right or wrong. Just
Yes.
make decisions
Yeah.
and be
Ab-
happy when you're wrong and be
mm.
delighted when you're right. There is no sorrow in a bad decision.
Absolutely. Just learning lessons. I love that. I love that. Well, thank you very much, Pankaj. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to speak with you today, as it always is, actually. But if people want to get hold of you or potentially work with you, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Oh, I would say my LinkedIn would be the best
Okay,
way, and
sure.
that's probably the best way. Yeah.
I will make sure that your LinkedIn link is in the show notes so people can reach out to you and from there. So listen, thank you very much. It's been an absolute honor chatting with you today. And thank you for sharing your insights with us all today.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you for the wonderful questions and the respect. Thank you.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. This has been an absolute humdinger of an episode. I did warn you right at the very beginning there's going to be absolutely great. So thank you very much for joining us. But obviously, like always, if you've got something out of this, make sure that you're commenting, write down what you liked about it, sharing it, subscribe to channels so you hear other thought leaders, but more importantly, share this with other people that you think that could take advantage of the insights that were heard today, and so that everybody can grow. So until next time, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you again, Pankaj, for joining us, and we shall see you all soon on the next episode. Bye-bye.